Hey everyone. So today I have a very special guest. We have my dear friend Vinay. Vinay is the founder, a serial entrepreneur, let me rephrase that, of two successful companies. The first one was Convio, which he sold and then which he took public in 2010, and then it got sold again for 325 million in 2012. He currently is the founder and CEO of a company called TrustRadius. Vinay has a phenomenal story, a crazy journey. We're going to talk about everything from fathering two kids, which is the best accomplishment, to how do you weather a storm. And Vinay, I am so excited to have you here with us today. So thank you so much.
I'm delighted to be talking to you, Ephraim.
So Vinay, let's take a step back. Where are you from and what was your upbringing like?
I was born in the UK of Indian immigrant parents. My mother's family were three generations in East Africa, and my dad from India. They had a love marriage in England, which was pretty rare in the 1960s. Grew up in England in an environment that was not always that friendly, frankly, to immigrants. My parents definitely instilled important kind of core values in me around hard work, around treating people properly, around personal responsibility, and the importance of education. So that was drilled into me very, very hard at a young age. While in high school, my dad was actually a designer for Ford Motor Company. My mum was a teacher. And so while we weren't wealthy, my dad did have kind of a business on the side where he used to go to London and buy products like briefcases and jeans and digital watches and then resell them in his office. And then he had a whole team of people across the Ford Motor Company in Europe selling product for him in their lunchtimes. And so it was kind of interesting to see that micro entrepreneurship in action. And I used to go with him to London at the weekend and buy products and just see him in action. And I think that inspired me, down the path of entrepreneurship. But again, being being very focused on education, for my early 20s, went to university at Cambridge, studied electrical engineering, ended up getting a scholarship to go to Stanford, just really focused on education. And then my first real job, aside from summer internships, with a company called Bain, which is a management consulting firm, and joined them in San Francisco, went back to London, lived out in Asia for a couple of years in Hong Kong, which was amazing. It just really opened my eyes to the world of business and made me think and made me a lot more confident as an individual. Ended up leaving Bain after 3 years to go to business school at Harvard, where it was a tremendous experience where I was exposed to amazing people like Warren Buffett, who come in and give his worldview. The CEO of Ford Motor Company, all these people from different industries, and again was inspired there to really think about what I wanted to do with my life. Again, I'd taken arguably a fairly risk-averse path up till that point, where I'd gone and gotten the right education and worked at the right companies. But it was while at business school, I really decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I spent the summer on Wall Street in banking and private equity. I honestly didn't like banking. I liked private equity, but felt I wanted to be on the other side of the table as an operator, and decided, because it was 1998, that I wanted to go into the tech industry. So joined a tech company in Austin that was recruiting aggressively. Decided that I was a bit of a culture mismatch with that company, spoke up too much and got myself fired. And that led me to start my first company, Convio.
So let's take a break there. So first I want to go back to your father. Well, I think it's absolutely phenomenal. Like you mentioned, he was like a micro entrepreneur. This is before eBay, before Amazon. Maybe they had like the marketing pyramids, like people used to sell products, things like that. But I think that his initiative, what he did, is absolutely amazing. Selling it within the company and you joining him over there. That's incredible. So you take obviously this very risk-averse path, which is understandable. Being the parents of immigrants, but also Indians, which are very focused specifically on education. But on a side note, how'd you pass that down onto your children? Are you also very?
I think about it all the time. I do think there's a nature and nurture aspect to children. And I'm extremely happy about the fact that both my kids have a lot of just internal drive. My daughter loves music and loves to sing, and so right now we're all at home during this, COVID-19 crisis, and she's self-directed. She's reading a lot on her own, fiction. She loves fiction, and she's playing piano with no prompting from me. My son is passionate about different things. He's a scientist at heart. He loves facts, and he loves to pick up kind of books and spend time on his iPad researching really obscure topics. He tends to pick different topics at a time. Right now he's into astronomy. He's actually joining me here. Son,
Sure.
say hi, camera. It's one of those real-time moments.
Hello.
Kishan, what are you into right now? What's interesting to you?
I am
You're getting shy?
no, I can't think.
You can't think, okay. Well, recently he's been really into astronomy.
Oh, wow.
Before that, he was really into marine biology. He actually did a lecture to his school on sharks. So he loves to kind of immerse himself. So I'm very happy that the kids are very self-directed in that respect.
And I'll show you something.
But as parents, what we try and do, no, that's okay. As parents, sorry, this is what happens now these days. Parents, what we just try and do is give them core values, right? Lead by example in terms of, work ethic, value for money, treating other people with respect, manners. If you're in a restaurant, how to treat the person that's serving you, please and thank yous, instilling that. And then just obviously, overseeing and making sure that they do their homework properly and they're disciplined about it and they're self-directed, and trying to teach them personal accountability. One of my things that I also do is I think it's important for the kids to do some level of chores. Mm-hmm. We're obviously financially comfortable, but I still think the kids should be involved in, whether that's doing their own laundry or helping me wash the cars. They need to feel kind of grounded and not just have everything done for them. So that's something that I think is something I think about a lot in a world where kids are growing up more privileged than previous generations, and you just kind of gotta imbue those characteristics in them.
Wow. So then tell me like this: how having kids, being married and having kids, how has that affected you personally within business? I guess dealing with employees, dealing with business, and in general.
It changed me. I think, I would say I'm still a workaholic. If I'm intellectually honest, and I don't think anyone would disagree with that. I'm still, pretty intense about my work. But, it grounds you. It did change my outlook on life during the time that I was building Convio when I had children. A lot of people who work for me said I kind of changed post-kids because it centers you and gives you something else to focus on and a purpose in life. So, it's obviously not right for everybody. I know I have friends who have chosen not to have children in life for very good reasons. And I think you should only have children if you really, really want them. But for me, it's been an amazing kind of grounding experience. They are the center of our lives. And they bring joy every day. They bring sort of a natural happiness, even little moments like that right now where you kind of, where he comes and gets interrupted, they're bored for a few minutes. It's joyful to have that interaction. One of the routines that I'm trying to institute now that we're all at home together is just sort of a daily exercise routine. Yesterday was going out, 2 days ago I was going out in the garden and playing there. Yesterday it was going on for a long walk with our dog. And just that time together as a family was really, really important to keep us all grounded through all of this. And it's a way to interact. And as a parent, I think it's really important to be present. As someone who's busy with your job, with devices like iPhones, it's really hard to untether from work. But I think it's really important to find time that you are detached from work and focused on your children, whether that's dinner time where you try and have a real conversation with them. One of my personal favorites before, again, this crisis was actually picking them up from school and the drive home and that time together where we could interact. And now it's going for a walk together where we talk about all sorts of random topics, things that are on their mind, and letting them just express themselves and treating them like a mini adult in that sense of having real conversations with them.
Right. And that's absolutely amazing. Especially hearing your routine of you dealing with your kids, as a busy person, having a company, having employees, making time to pick up your children from school every single day, speaking with them in general, having dinner time. What else do you do?
It's not every day. I do it a couple of times a week, and I do a morning run, A, to help out my wife, and B, just because I really love that time with them. But yes, it does mean that I kind of leave work early and carve time out for them when I do that. Mm-hmm. Weekends are focal on them, obviously. I invariably have to do some work at the weekends, usually on a Sunday night, but try and keep most of the days free for them as well. Right. So, family's the most important thing in life, right? I mean, if we think about what do we want on our eulogy when we go, right. You don't want to have he worked really hard and had business impact, right? It's about the mark you leave on the world and the mark you leave on your children most directly, and the type of people that you raise. That's how you want to be measured in life.
Right. Now, 100%. So then, people now, families that are dealing in, this very difficult time right now, COVID-19, and, parents are home with their kids, and, they obviously have the ability to spend more time with their family and use out this time to get to know them. But they're also going through difficult times personally, not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing what can we tell them? What message you have for these people?
We will get through this. The honest truth is we don't know how long this is going to last for, and how bad it will be. My personal sense is that we'll see some relief in terms of the health crisis this summer with rising temperatures. I'm no medical expert, but I try and inform myself and read a lot. I think we may have another reoccurrence in the fall as temperatures start to drop again. I do believe a vaccine will be released sometime later this year after it goes through a rapid clinical trial. I've heard of some testing of treatment cocktails in countries like India, that may work to kind of radically treat it. I do think there is a risk of this virus mutating, and we're going to have to develop more and more sort of effective methods at vaccinating and treating people for it. But I believe in our medical science and our medical industry in finding the solutions for it. And then from an economics perspective, I think it's prudent to think that the economy is going to be really in pain for a couple of quarters, but it will start to recover. Fundamentally, before this crisis, the economy was in good shape. Unemployment rates were low. GDP was up. It's different to the 2008 crisis. It's somewhat different to 9/11, where that was also around the time of the dot-com bubble as well, where there was some fundamental question structurally in the economy that when the shock occurred, there was a long path to recovery, because there were fundamental breakages, underlying structural problems in the economy. I think this is different, but I think there's a lot of fear associated with the health, and I think there's still too many people grossly underestimating the impact. When you see images of people on South Beach in Florida together partying still, yes, as a young person you may not be impacted directly, but it's socially irresponsible in terms of the impact you can have on other people, and elderly people in particular. So I hope society kind of wakes up to the seriousness of the threat and takes all the appropriate actions in terms of social distancing. But we will get through this. But we'll only get through this if we act together and we act responsibly together.
Yeah, 100%. And then what do we tell the entrepreneur or the founder of a company that's going through a difficult time, that has the choice now that he's coming to the realization that numbers are not going to be hit this first quarter, not the second quarter, maybe not the third and the fourth even, and he has his whole entire workforce, or he's going through a difficult time currently now. What can we do? What should he do? What steps should he take?
Well, I'll tell you what I'm doing, and I'll tell you what my fellow CEOs that I'm talking to are doing. So one is, don't have a knee-jerk reaction, right? You've got to be measured in your approach. The the first thing that we did, so we had a management team offsite last Thursday and Friday planned and held, before this crisis really hit. But the timing was really, really, really good. A few immediate decisions. We decided to freeze hiring. We decided to cut any non-people related expenses we could, like contractors, um, um, any expenditure, subscriptions we didn't need, etc. The second thing we've done is start to do financial scenario modeling to understand what happens if sales bookings decline by a certain rate by quarter, if retention rates drop, etc.
Right.
And creating flexibility in a financial model so that you can model out different scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
The third thing we've done is get really, really close to what's happening in our business. So I have a daily war room on customer renewal every single day at 5:00, where I meet with my director of account management and my vice president of customer success on what's happening with making progress with both renewals and also driving ROI for customers, getting much closer to the pipeline, doing a lot more detailed inspection of the pipeline with my VP of sales, making sure we're doing weekly updates to the forecast, making sure we're digging into the pipeline, both from a new business demand generation perspective and from a sales conversion perspective, weekly or even daily. Training our frontline teams to adapt. If you're a sales development professional trying to prospect right now, life is really, really hard, right? Mm-hmm. People are frozen, paralyzed, but you still need to actually hit a number. So coaching people through how to adapt to be appropriately, to show empathy, but also to show value, such that people are still motivated to take a call. And even if they're not going to take a call today, maybe you can secure a call for 30 days from now when people are feeling a little bit more okay about things. So the wheels don't stop spinning as a startup. You have to take prudent action, but you can't take just knee-jerk reactions unless you're about to sort of run out of capital or so grossly overstaffed. The idea of just letting go of people in one big tranche is not a measure you should take lightly. It's something that you have to really, again, be close to your numbers at, run financial scenarios. And if that's the disaster scenario you have to take to keep your company alive and make sure that the surviving people in your company still have a livelihood, you may have to do that, but you can't take that decision lightly. It has to be taken with just a lot of data analysis and thinking, because there's obviously a real downside to a restructuring in terms of both morale, but also losing key talents that may be hard to recruit back when the economy starts to recover. Right. So here are all the things to think about. The other aspect to think about is how do you just maintain productivity and sanity in a work from home environment. Right. And we all operate in different ways. I'm actually probably more efficient right now because I'm extremely focused and I don't have to commute. I don't have the same type of interruptions. But for other people, I've heard from some of the CEOs I work with in California where their kids are in public school that the schools are actually putting a lot more onus on the parents to do tuition with their kids. If that starts to be the case, my kids are on spring break right now, so I don't know what it's going to be like. We're not pushing them to work right now, but a week from now when they go back to school, but it'll be long distance, parenting's going to change and people are going to have to be flexible about when people work, right? You have to do stuff with your kids during the day. Some of the work's going to have to happen after hours. It's going to be harder to do team conference. So we're all adapting to trying to figure out how to do what. We are testing things like having, video lunches together or video coffee time or video after work drinks. I myself haven't been able to make any of those. I'm so busy. But, I think the new norms around how you build a vibrant culture is really, really important. I also think may differ with demographic. So one of the CEOs says they've got a lot of young people who maybe crave more social interaction. And how do you create social interaction outlets for them when they don't have them now? And then secondly, how do you guide them and chaperone them where you can no longer do the walk bys or the drive bys? And people, you may have to schedule daily check-ins, daily standards. daily KPIs, daily measurements for people to just focus on track.
Right. Wow. I mean, those are such key valid points. So the question is, like, taking back to, and we'll go back into this afterwards. When you were operating in 2009-11 and 2008, and we'll take 2008 because that's the most recent thing, and it's obviously different than now.
Yeah.
You know, but what message were you telling yourself? And all of a sudden, the recession hits. You have this company, you have a full staff, and you have to plow through.
I think for us in 2008, the good news is that we were pretty well funded. We were about to go public. We had an IPO, S1. We were working with Goldman Sachs to take us public, and we pulled the IPO. That was the biggest change, and we just hunkered down and we replanned, and we kind of just got on with it. The environment was tougher, but we just focused on driving customer value, and hunkered down and got on with it. And that's the same thing I'm doing now, honestly. So again, the plan that we had of record has changed. We haven't kind of formally locked on a new business plan, but we're running scenarios, and again, frozen hiring, so we are implicitly changing the plan. But the thing that we're really kind of hunkering down on is, I think it's brought a more acute focus to where value is driven.
Right.
So for me, I've created a very focused initiative at my company today on ROI. And I said, everything we need to do as a company needs to drive customer ROI. And everything else is superfluous right now. And that increases the focus on product innovation around serving current customers versus acquiring new customers, and really making sure that current customers are getting a strong ROI. So that's where my focus has turned to, is like, are we delivering value? Are we making ourselves essential to our customers? And I think that's something we did in 2008, 2009, when the crisis occurred at my last company. Post 9/11, one of the things we had to do was just look honestly at our economic outlook. We had, at that point in time, scaled Convio to about 70 people. And honestly, I was a first-time entrepreneur, and we were completely over-exuberant and overly rose-colored grown too fast. We had to do a restructuring. We took the company from 70 to people. I've managed TrustRadius just a lot more tightly this time, where the business is just a lot more efficient. You think about every head a lot more, with a lot more scrutiny. So it's a different situation than I found myself in one of these.
Right. Gotcha. No. So it seems like a lot of it is just really just going back to basics, back to the fundamentals, what really makes a difference. And you're right. Like, a lot of companies are going to have to do that now. Focus on the basics, focus on the fundamentals. Everything else that is, you have to get rid of. That's what I agree. So, you built a Convio, you took it public, and then you sold it. And then you decided you wanted to go ahead and start another company, TrustRadius. Has a journey, for having experienced previous success, has the journey been easier in your second one?
I think it's harder. Maybe because I'm tackling a harder problem. We're building a two-sided marketplace. Where we've got, buyers who are buying technology, and then vendors who are the ones who pay our bills, who are trying to sort of engage with buyers and market to them, etc. And it's a more complex business with more moving parts. Inherently, it's a more interesting business that, once we get the model really firing up, it's extremely scalable and should be just, have really good unit economics. But it's been a harder business to build just because of that complexity. We had to solve three problems. How do you encourage total strangers to write authoritative reviews of products that are actually useful? And to make sure those reviews are valid, screened, vetted, and again, useful to buyers. And how do you create that motivation? The second is, how do you build audience with that content in order to create an asset that's worth monetizing? And then third, how do you monetize in a way that doesn't compromise your trust, integrity with buyers? And those are all three non-trivial problems that have taken each multiple years to solve. We're doing well now. The traffic side has gone particularly well this year, where we're up about the focus right now again is just on how do we monetize the network that we've built while continuing to grow it
Right.
in a way that's efficient, effective, delivers ROI for our vendor partners, but it doesn't compromise our relationship with buyers.
Gotcha. So then, what mistakes that you're trying to make sure you're not going to make again then in this journey and building out now in TrustRadius?
I would say, the two primary lessons I took from Convio were team is everything.
Mm-hmm.
I've put a much more acute focus on who's on my team, my first team, my management team, but also the employees beneath them. Invariably, I try and interview every candidate before they get hired. I'm trying to put more rigor into how we recruit to make sure we've got a more structured process where we sort of grade people on different performance criteria.
Sure.
We have an acute focus on core values. We have a mantra around truth, which is transparency, being respectful, being unstoppable, and being a team player and being human. So those are our core values. And we measure people against those core values when we do recruitment, but also when we do performance reviews and when we do award ceremonies and when we do weekly recognition. So thinking a lot about the human factor in terms of how do you establish values, how do you make sure the right people are on the bus with you, getting better at performance reviews. Right now we do performance reviews in most departments every 6 months. I want to move the company to a quarterly cycle. My engineering leader already does it quarterly, and I think it's really important. I take performance management really seriously. I've just recently been going through performance reviews for all my leadership team, and I go and get 360 feedback from their team, their peers, other people they work with them, and spend about 8 hours on every performance review because it's really important. So people management is incredibly important. The second lesson has been around realism. Don't get too over-exuberant about forecasts, inspect everything, get into the details on things like customer renewal and on sales forecast and marketing planning. I trust people, but I also need to inspect and validate and verify that the engine beneath the hood is running properly, and don't get too far out ahead of ourselves in terms of spending and hiring. So those are the two big lessons for me. A third thing that I'm still working on is just alignment. I think it's really, really hard as a company to get everyone on the same page. We are trying to leverage the OKR framework to really drive business alignment, but communicating. And especially in a time of change like this, where maybe you're pivoting direction somewhat or changing focuses, but driving alignment around a common goal and communicating that and getting everybody on the same page is something that is still a work in progress for me. And it's something I'm trying very hard to do well.
Right. So then let me ask you regarding the first one, people. How do you go about establishing that culture of, radical transparency, sort of meritocracy to a certain degree, and a place where people are able to provide that real feedback to each other without a fear of having any type of retribution or some consequences afterwards?
You lead by example. You act like that. So I'm extremely transparent myself in all formats, whether it's an email update. We do a weekly stand-up as a company where I'm extremely transparent. We survey our employees and ask how we're doing regularly, and we try and report back on how we're doing against those points of feedback. We invite people to ask questions. I take out small groups for lunch. So before COVID, I would take 3 people out to lunch every 1 to 2 weeks from different departments as a way for them to ask questions of each other and ask any questions of me, and I'd ask questions of them. So we try and build sort of communication mechanisms. And it's all about hiring people, right, who understand the importance of being transparent. It's a work in progress. We're not perfect at it. One of the things I got dinged on from our employee team is that our stand-up's a little bit too cheerleady, and they want to actually know more of the things that we're struggling with and more under the hood problems. And I think that's really good, and it's really mature. I think when you build a culture of transparency, the bar for transparency actually goes up. People demand more from you. And one of the things we're going to be doing next Monday, for example, is going under the hood on sales and saying, okay, yeah, there's a forecast and there's a commit, but how is it built up? What are the deals that are in there? What are the things the sales team's currently struggling with? And I think that's important both to give people confidence that the management team knows what they're doing and you can trust the leaders, but also to invite them to help problem solve, right?
Right.
The best companies are where you hire gifted people who are contributors to shaping a better world, who can innovate and solve problems. And I see really cool innovation happening across the company, and the innovation is going to be more directed when people understand what's important, and they understand the struggles of the company, and they understand the direction of the company.
Right. So then let me ask you this. In a time of crisis like right now, do you find is it going to be a time where more innovation comes out because people have to be unique, more creative?
I think so. I think it's a forcing function. I've told my team, and I feel this really, really deeply personally from my last company, is that tough times build great companies. They kind of separate the wheat from the chaff. They force constraints, right? You've got constrained resources. Life gets tougher. Winning business gets tougher. Renewing business gets tougher. It forces you to up your game. So in many ways, some of the things that I'm driving now are things I've wanted to push, but this has almost given me, an elevation of those principles. So the focus on customer ROI is something I felt deeply passionate about for a long time, but this has sort of added urgency to it.
Sure, not even a question. So someone that's had so far a 20-year success entrepreneurship journey, and I'm sure after TrustRadius, God willing, go well and everything, there's no doubt in my mind you're going to start another company and then another company. What message do we tell a new young entrepreneur that comes to says, "Hey, Vinay, I'm looking to start a startup," or he just started a startup? What do we tell him?
So understand your intrinsic motivation. Why do you want to be an entrepreneur? It can't just be about pursuit of wealth. It has to be about passion. It has to be about problem solving. It has to be about, making the world a better place in some way. If you do it purely, I'm not saying people who start companies purely in pursuit of money can't succeed, but I think there's a risk there that, when the going gets tough in times like this where it's really difficult, you won't have the conviction and the ability to kind of push through. So you have to be doing things for the right intrinsic reasons. Number two, don't pursue an idea that you just believe is a cool idea that you personally have an issue with. Be rigorous about market validation. Be completely intellectually honest about the market signals you're hearing. Listen to customers, listen to the market, don't listen to yourself or to a small group of friends. A problem that you may face but may not be a problem that the world universally faces. Third thing, surround yourself with good people. It's a journey, and you want good people who have strong character, who you want to work with and you trust on the journey with you. Again, it's a roller coaster, and you want people who are going to be there through the lows as well as the highs. And then, just be really, really intellectually honest along the way about what's working and what's not working. Look for mentors. Realize that you don't know a lot, that you have a lot to learn. Have a growth mindset to continuously be learning, not just from books, but from talking to people, talking to your team, taking feedback. Be very receptive to feedback, and be working on yourself continuously as well as your business.
Right. Wow. It seems like it seems like you went through many iterations yourself, many different versions of your own self-growth over the years. What has helped you personally grow? Your own self-awareness, your own personal growth,
I think going through difficulty actually forces that. So I think, with Convio, it was easy to raise money, but hard to build a business. Initially, we were selling into the nonprofit sector. And then again, the 9/11 and the ensuing financial crisis was really hard, and it taught me a lot. As I handed the reins of CEO to another person, and I became CSO, strategy officer, working with them from 2003 till our eventual exit. And that was hard emotionally at first, but I also learned a lot from that experience. It was a lesson in managing one's ego, and instead of viewing the situation as what could I learn from that experience instead, and learning from someone who had been around the block as an operator. Most recently with TrustRadius, the best thing I did was join a CEO peer group called 10X, where I have an executive coach who I speak to once a month, but I also have a forum of other CEOs at growth companies who we meet in person once a quarter. And now we're doing kind of, through this crisis, we're doing kind of ad hoc conversations with each other. But it's been phenomenal to both see the struggles that they're going through and give advice based on one's own experience, but also to get their peer mentorship and also that accountability to each other, where we know our businesses intimately and we can give each other really honest advice. And before that, having friends that I could have that kind of networking with has been really important. But at a macro level, it's sort of having that idea that we're all vulnerable. We don't know everything, that we have an opportunity to learn. No matter how successful we've been in life, we can always improve ourselves. Just having that mindset.
Right. When are we going to see the principles of Vinay, or the book of Vinay wrote?
That's really funny. I haven't thought about writing something like that, but if you think it's worthy of packaging, maybe it's something I should work on.
I think it most definitely is something we should definitely talk about. So what do we tell, for example, what's a non-obvious habit? And you just mentioned a bunch of stuff that made you better, going through difficult times, having mentors, having good friends, constantly, other things, obviously not taking yourself too seriously. But what is something that's not obvious that only like looking in hindsight, you realize that, this has made me better?
I think it's probably how my brain is wired, but I have the ability to go deep and then go up really high. So I can see the macro forest from the trees, but I can laser in on specific issues and spot errors in a financial model or in a demand gen model, or inspect a deal in pipeline and cause questions. I'm sure it drives my team insane. But I have that ability to kind of laser in, and I also have a near photographic memory for things like customer contracts and terms and things like that. So I think what's been very helpful for me is the ability to kind of laser in when I need to and really inspect the details, but also kind of understand at a macro picture what's next and see around corners. And I think it's probably a learned skill. Some of it, again, is nature, that I had certain abilities, but it's been a learned skill where I've learned that. Now, in terms of habits, I don't know. I mean, that's a really, really good question. I think one of the things I'm trying to do as a habit more now is just things like skip one-on-ones and times with frontline team members. The lunch series that I've been doing for a year or two now, where I take 3 people to lunch, has been really, really helpful to me, because I learn things about the business I don't learn just directly from my VPs. And I also help drive transparency and communication directly to the front line. So I would say that idea of like just finding different mechanisms for feedback from your team, from the market, is critically important. Staying really close to one's customers is really important. Maintaining personal relationships with customers, just being fully customer centered, I think is always critically important, no matter what business you're in.
Right. So I want to ask you about your humility. Someone that went to Stanford, went to Harvard, worked at Bain, started a company at 29, they obviously took it public, raised a ton of money, and then obviously sold it. And then someone that started another company. So obviously you have much respect, because, like I always say, the people that the kids are looking up to these days are the Zuckerbergs, Elon Musk, and Bill Gates, and everyone else, entrepreneurs like yourself. How do you keep that humility? Not getting too pompous, which I'm able to see you have that. You have the humility. You have that kindness.
Again, that's probably nurture from my mom, right? My parents, again, were immigrants. My parents were not wealthy. My parents taught me to treat elders with respect and just treat people with respect. And so I think that's always been ingrained with me. But also I think, there's always someone who's more successful than you. There's always, and I'm not saying it from a comparison or envy perspective.
Sure.
There are always people who are going to be better than you at something, right? And I think humility is about recognizing that you never stop growing, whether that's in business or in personal life, or I'm a squash player and I'm an average squash player and I want to be better. I want to up my game. the idea that we can always be better instances of ourselves, whether that's as a parent, as a sports person, as a leader. But it starts by being open to the fact that, you know, we're all fragile, malleable people who can become better forms of ourselves, and having a desire to become a better form of yourself in every facet of your life, and being open to feedback. Right. So I think it's just that. It's just who I am. I'm not sure where I am that way, but I can tell you that when it comes to hiring, when it comes to the people I want to surround myself with in life as friends, I look for those similar attributes. I look for humble people in my life.
Right. I'm sure your mother is extremely, extremely proud. Very proud. It's incredible. So what message do we tell younger Vinay? You know, he's coming out of school. He has the ability to just stay at Bain, or he could go get a job at McDonald's and, you know, operate over there, or he could go ahead and start a company. What young message do we tell him?
Don't be too risk averse. I think I was definitely way too risk averse for too long. But I also think, you know, starting something from scratch, you know, may not be always the right course. Maybe what I could have done is go join a younger high growth company and learn under some really good people. The first 5 to 10 years of your career, you know, after college, I think really ought to be focused on learning. You know, I'm a lifelong learner who believes that you can learn you can and should learn throughout your life. But I think, you know, someone graduating should really be thinking about not so much wealth creation, not so much their own thing, unless they've got that brilliant idea they want to start, but rather, how can I go learn? You know, the years that I was at Convio working with an executive who knew what he was doing were very instructive to me. Right. And, you know, go work for people who are great in an industry that has interesting dynamics, that's growing, that you know, a growth company affords you opportunities to grow as an individual, and just be focused on learning that first phase of your life. Don't be too much of a hurry to start something. Right. Until you've learned some skills, until you've got enough industry knowledge to start something that's truly valid. Wow.
Vinay, I honestly, I don't have words to thank you. I have personally learned so much from this interview. Sense of comfort that I've received too, and there's no doubt in my mind that multiple people are going to benefit from this. Not just, you know, the lessons of life that you're able to give over, but also how to deal with crisis. You know, what we're going through currently right now. So, you know, obviously it goes without saying, any way it could be there for you, for your family, for TrustRadius. I'm always here. But really, thank you so much.
I was delighted to do this. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I'm glad you found it of some value. But I really enjoyed talking to you, Ephraim.
Thank you.